Hello, everyone. This is Nanette Kennedy with Humanities Team and the Evolution Revolution, and this is our Sunday book discussion group. And yet again, we've had a little bit of technological issues. We're getting those straightened out, and I'm going to let Linda take it from here. She can tell you what page we're on, and it is Friendship with God by Neale Donald Walsch. And I'm going to try to get Ann on the call. So I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, so in the paperback book, we're on page 207, right about in the middle. In the Kindle book, we're also, for some reason, on the same page this time. Sometimes they're not the same. So, this is Neale speaking. Well, yes, I do know that neediness, expectation, and jealousy really are the great love enders. Still, I'm not sure that I can eliminate these from my life, because I'm not sure I know the formula. I mean, that's one thing to say, don't do that anymore, and it's another thing to say, here's how. That's where your friendship with me comes in. A friendship with God allows you to know not only the formula for getting rid of neediness, expectation, and jealousy, but the formula for all of life, the wisdom of the ages. Your friendship with me will also allow you to practicalize this wisdom, to make it practical, to make it real, to make it live in your life. It's one thing to know, and another to be able to use what you know. It's one thing to have knowledge, and another to have wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge applied. I will show you how to apply the knowledge I have given you. I'm always showing you that. Yet it will be easier for you to hear me if we have a friendship. Then we can really zing, we can really fly. We're talking about here is a real friendship with God, not a pseudo friendship, not a make-believe friendship, not a part-time friendship, but important, meaningful, close friendship. I'm taking you through these steps that will allow you to do that. The first three steps are know God, trust God, love God. And now we're looking at step 4, embrace God. Embrace God. Embrace God. Get close to God. That's what we've been talking about here. We've been talking about how to get close to God. I'd like to do that. I'd like to be close to you. I've always known I wanted to be close to you. I just didn't know how. And now you do. Now you know one very good way. By being with silence, being with the self for a few golden moments each day. This is where you most profitably begin. When you are with the self, the true self, you are with me. For I am one with the self, and the self is one with me. As I have said to you before, there is more than one way to do this. I've given you one way. I've just described one way. But there is more than one way. There is more than one way to the self, and more than one way to God. And that is something that every religion in the world would do well to understand and teach. Once you've found yourself, you may wish to begin to move out from the self, to create a newer world. To do this, touch others as you would have yourself be touched. See others as you would have yourself be seen. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Exactly. Embrace others as you would seek to embrace me. For when you embrace others, you do embrace me. Embrace all the world, for all the world embraces who and what I am. Reject nothing of the world, and no one in it. Yet while you are in the world, and the world is in you, remember, that you are larger than it. You are the creator of it, for you are creating your own reality as sure as you are experiencing it. You are both the creator and the created, as am I. I am made, quote, in the image and likeness of God. Yes, and you can choose to have the experience of being the creator or that which is created at any given moment. I can choose to be in this world, but not of it. You're learning, my friend. You're learning the knowledge that I've given you and turning it into wisdom. For wisdom is knowledge applied. You're becoming a messenger. We are beginning to speak with one voice. Making friends with you really does mean making friends with all people and with everything, every circumstance and condition. Yes. Well, what if there's a person or a condition that you'd rather not see continuing having an effect in your life? What if there's a person or a condition that you find hard to love, that you find yourself wanting to resist? What you resist persists. Remember that. The solution then? Love. Love. There is no condition, no circumstance, no problem that love cannot solve. That does not mean that you must submit to abuse. We've discussed this before. It does mean that love for yourself and others is always a solution. There is no person that love cannot heal. There is no soul that love cannot save. Indeed, there is no saving to be done at all, for love is what every soul is. And when you give the soul of another what it is, you have given it back to itself. That's what I have said that you do for us. And that has become the mission statement of my foundation. That's what came to me when I was trying to write the mission statement. To give if everybody could mute themselves, it would be helpful. That's when it came to me when I was trying to write the mission statement, to give people back to themselves. Do you think this was by accident? I suppose now I should know better. Perhaps you should. Nothing is by accident, is it? Nothing. Not getting into radio, not my going to live in the South, not my being offered a job at an all-black radio station, and not my meeting with Jay Jackson at the Evening Capitol. It's all been very non-accidental, hasn't it? Yes. I knew that the first time Jay and I met. There seemed to be something fated between us. I can't explain it. It's just a feeling I had, almost from the moment I stepped into his office. I was nervous, yes, because I desperately needed work. But I had a sense that things were going to turn out all right almost immediately after I sat down. Jay was a wonderful man, and as I grew to know him, I found him to be compassionate, deeply understanding of the human condition, incredibly friendly, and most of all, humanly kind. Everyone loved him. And Jay saw the positive in everyone. He gave everyone a chance, and then a second chance, and then a third. Working for him was a dream. When you did something good, he never missed it. You'd get a note immediately, always in felt-tipped pen. Nice job on the budget story. Or, regarding interview with the nun, just great. These notes flew off his desk in a flurry. You could find them all over the newsroom, every day. I loved Jay, and I couldn't believe it when he died so young. He was in his mid-40s, I would guess, and had some kind of a stomach problem. Or maybe it was something much larger, I don't know. All I know is that in the last months I worked alongside him, he was eating nothing but mush, baby food mainly, or oatmeal. That's the only kind of stuff he could eat. We were at the Anne Arundel Times then, The Evening Capital had been purchased, and Jay, along with his father and brother, had bought another small paper and turned it into a weekly, serving all of Anne Arundel County. Annapolis was the county seat. I was still working at the Capitol when Jay called and offered me a job as the founding managing editor of the Times. It took me 2 seconds to decide. I received a liberal education at the first paper, but I learned even more at the second. A much smaller publication with a tiny staff required hands-on preparation each week. I learned about layout and paste up. I was also the newspaper's photographer. I had to learn fast how to handle a camera and even how to work my way around a dark room. Okay, hang on, I got a cough. And it's ace, actually only reporter. I also learned a lot about operating under pressure with all of a newspaper publication's unforgiving time deadlines. I was hoping that when you get here is that I discovered talents I didn't even know I had. I also discovered that I could call forth these talents by simply pressing myself to do so. This was a major revelation for me. This was a major message, a memo from the top. God was telling me something that I have used countless times since. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Don't be afraid in your life to stretch. Reach higher than your grasp. It may seem scary at first, but you'll come to enjoy it. As for me, I loved it. I thrilled on it. I couldn't get enough of it. And Jay knew that about me. He saw that in me, and he drew it out of me. In those younger years, I was often beset by insecurity. But Jay knew what I was made of. He gave me back to myself. All masters do that, and by doing so, they give the greatest blessing. I blossomed under Jay's tutelage, under his firm but gentle guidance, and his nothing is impossible brand of leadership. In fact, I soon adopted it, made it my own. It matched up very well with what my father had taught me. You can do anything you set your mind to. Or, as my mother would put it, where there's a will, there's a way. As I said, I was really shocked when Jay died so young. I didn't think a person that good should have to leave so soon. His work was done. I know that now, but I didn't understand it then. I was mystified, hurt. If this is the reward for the really nice ones, what's the point? That's what was in my head anyway. I wasn't even sure in those days whether there was such a thing as a hereafter. I didn't know if there was life after death. Jay's death shook me. It made me look hard at this question. Did you find an answer? Yes, I received my answer the day of Jay's funeral. How did that happen? Jay gave me the answer himself, in 2 words, in the graveyard, in his own voice. That's the end of chapter 10. Should I keep going, or do we want to stop?
What's the group want to do? Do we want to start discussing, or should we read for maybe 10 more minutes?
Let's read for 10 more minutes. That's the end of chapter 9.
Correct.
I'm dying of curiosity to see what Jay told him.
Me too. Okay.
Okay, moving on. Chapter 10. Neil speaking. A graveyard is perhaps an unlikely place to find enlightenment, but that's where I found it. A piece of it, anyway. I'd gone to Jay's funeral service at St. Anne's Church in Annapolis, but arrived late and found just about every seat in the place was taken. Half of the city must have been there, and I don't know why, but I felt somehow out of place with all the public mourners. I guess I wanted a private moment just between us. I'd lost a very good friend. We'd become that. We'd been like an older brother to me. Well, I left the church and I decided to have my personal service for Jay, my own private goodbye, at his gravesite later that day. 2 hours later, when I guessed that everyone would have been to the grave and left, I made my way to St. Anne's Cemetery. My guess was right. There was no one there. I set out to find Jay's grave and say my farewell. Except I couldn't find the gravesite anywhere. I looked at row after row of headstones, but no Elmer J. Jackson Jr. I doubled back and looked again. Nothing. I was becoming frustrated. Maybe I should have stuck with the funeral party after all. Had I gotten the wrong cemetery? Was I not looking in the right place? I really wanted to say goodbye to Jay. I really wanted this moment. And now it was starting to drizzle. The wind had come up, and it looked like a storm was brewing. "Come on, Jay," I shouted inside my head. "Where are you?" You know how when you're at a traffic light and you want it to change and it isn't changing, and you shout, "Come on, change, damn it," inside your head? That's what I was doing here. You don't really expect the light to change right then, right there, in that instant. And you don't really expect to get an answer in a cemetery. In fact, I think you'd rather not. Well, I did, and it scared the wits out of me. "Over here." That's all he said. But it was his voice, Jay's, as crisp and as clear as a bell. It came directly from behind me. And I whipped around so fast I almost left my shoes. But there was no one. Nothing. I could have sworn I heard Jay. And then I heard him again. Over here. This time it came from further away in the direction I was now facing, but up over a small knoll. A chill ran up my back. It was Jay's voice. It wasn't someone who sounded like Jay. It was Jay. But there was no one there. So then I thought maybe a groundskeeper had wandered in. Maybe he saw me looking around and guessed that I was searching for a freshly turned grave. Maybe he was someone who did sound a lot like Jay. But there just was no one around. I really wanted there to be someone around. I really did. Because this voice was not something I was imagining. I heard it as loudly and clearly as I heard the beating of my own heart in the moment. I rushed over the knoll. Maybe there's somebody on the downside and I just can't see them from here, I reasoned. I found a vantage point at the top of the knoll and looked around. No one. Then I heard the voice again, softer now, the words spoken quietly, as if you were right behind me. "Over here." I turned around slowly this time. I was frightened, I'll admit it. But fright soon turned to amazement. Jay's headstone was square in front of me. I was standing on his grave. I jumped off that pile of earth as if I'd been standing on an alligator. "Sorry," I apologized. I don't know who I thought I was talking to. Yes, I did. I was talking to Jay. I knew then that he was there. I knew that he had survived his death and that he had called me to his grave for a final private moment. My eyes filled with tears. I sat on the ground and rested there for a while, catching my breath, looking at Jay's name, freshly carved in the marble. I waited for him to say something else. He didn't. "Well," I said after a while, "what's it like being dead?" I was trying to lighten the moment. Instead, I saw lightning in the distance. The storm was getting closer. Listen, Jay, I said in my head, I want to thank you for all you did for me and all that you were for everybody. You've been such an inspiration to so many people. You've touched so many lives in such a kind and caring way. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm going to miss you, Jay. I began to quietly sob. Then I received my last communication from Jay. It wasn't in the form of words this time. It was a feeling that lovingly swept over me, like someone laying a cape over my shoulders and gently squeezing my arms. I can't describe it further. There are no words. But I just knew then that Jay was going to be all right, that he was all right, and that I would be all right too. And I understood that everything right then was perfect. It was just the way it should be. I stood up. Okay, Jay, I get it. I smiled. Nothing is impossible. As I turned and walked back down the hill, I could have sworn I heard a chuckle. You two shared a beautiful moment there. Thank you. He was there, wasn't he? I did hear him, didn't I? And he did hear me. Yes. There is life after death, isn't there? Life is eternal. Death does not exist. I'm sorry to have even asked that question. I should know by now. Never doubt these things. Never? Never. A true master like the Buddha, a master like Krishna, like Jesus, never doubts. What about, Father, thou hast forsaken me? Well, that was, I don't know. I don't know what that was. Doubt, my son. That was doubt. If only for a moment, if only for a second. So know this, my friend. Every master visits his Garden of Gethsemane. There, she asks the questions every master asks. Could this be true? Have I made all this up? Is it really God's will that I drink from this cup? Or should it pass from my lips? I have some of those questions sometimes, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. It would be easier for you, if you were not talking to me right now. In many ways, it would be easier. You could realize all of this. Let all this go, all this responsibility that you've taken on to bring a message to the human race and to help change the world. All this public attention you've drawn to yourself, which has placed your life in a spotlight. Yes, I see that it is your will that you go on. It is your will that all that has occurred in your life should occur. All the incidents of your life have led you to this moment. You were given the perfect mother and the perfect father to prepare you for this assignment you have given yourself, the perfect family situation and the perfect childhood. You were given raw talents in communication and the chance to develop those talents. You were put in just the right place at just the right time, and others were put there with you in just the right way. This is why you met Jay Jackson and why he had such a profound impact on your life. It's why you've worked among blacks in Baltimore, Southern whites, the natives of Africa, the people of Ecuador. It's why you have joined in friendship and in meaningful conversation with oppressed and fearful people who have nothing, living under totalitarian regimes in foreign lands, and with world-famous movie stars and television personalities and political leaders who have everything living in your own country. Nothing has happened to you by accident. Nothing has occurred by chance. It has been called forth, all of it, that you may experience and know what you choose to experience, and know that you may experience the grandest version of the greatest vision you ever held about who you are. I take it then that out of that same category came my meeting with Joe Alton. Let's stop here.
I agree.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
I just have something to say before we start the discussion. I read an article today outlining the intransigence between the Palestinians and the Arabs in Israel. And in Western Canada, where I'm now living, there's a huge fight between two neighboring provinces about the construction of a pipeline. So I'd be grateful if we could look at these two extremes and just pour love on them, because each side is determined to stay firm. And there's a fight and a half going on with no possible chance of resolution. So if we could do the meditation now, I'd be grateful. Because what we read is that love is the only bridge, the only way to resolve what is completely bipolar. Is that okay?
Yes.
We thank you, God, that as a group we can join our hearts to just soak all the opposing parties in every conflict everywhere in love. That what we read now is exactly your will, is for us to bring everyone to love and to watch that we are all one and that there is indeed a resolution which is a win-win for everyone. Amen.
Thank you, Shabana.
Well, before we start discussion, I want to also thank Linda for being a wonderful reader. With such emphasis and feeling. I mean, you really you are one of the best readers I've ever had encountered. It's just wonderful the way you read. It's just wonderful. I can't find the words to describe it. Thank you.
It's funny that
Thank you.
mentioned that, because while Linda was reading that part about Neil's loss of his friend Jay, I thought, I don't know if I could handle him telling the story directly to us. I would probably, I'm sure he would have been in tears if he were to tell us that story sometime. Because it brings up in all of us, somebody that's moved on into the next realm, and things that we hear I'm going to let somebody else take it from there.
I can share something. It's very touching for me to read about this stage of life and so on, and it reminds me of my father, who was 45 when he died, and he was such an enormous inspiration for so many people. He was a magician, and he was giving so much love, and so many people remember. I remember I was 14, and after that, every time, and your father, he was amazing, and I heard it from my cousins and your dad. And I remember it was so unbelievable that he could pass away. And I was walking around, and for myself, I didn't have any brothers and sisters, so I was alone. My mother was completely exhausted by this, but she had her brothers and sisters. And I was thinking, this is what's happening. It can happen to anyone. I'm one of those who experience this. And 10 years after that, my daughter was born, and she was only 33. And I followed her the whole way in similar way. I was not with my father when he died, but he was at home very long time. So I was very close to his process of dying. And my daughter, I followed every step where she went into different stages, and she shared them with me. And one day when I was staying at the graveyard, it was like I heard her say, I came to teach you about life and death. And I was like, yes, she was my firstborn. And she was the first one I saw dying and saw dead. I never saw my father, because that was not allowed at that time, because he was at hospital when he died. But I was with my daughter, and I was laying in the same room 2 nights. And then I was sitting at her chest, and every day up to the funeral, I opened it, and I was sitting meditating and experiencing. And I came into so many stages. So I think this was a very good mirror for me just now. Perfect that I managed to come home and be with you, because I was away. So thank you. That reading was really, yeah, that's true. That's so true. We are one. There is no death. It's just the body. There is, as my daughter said, it's word for you. My life continues. And she said that even though she had 3 small kids. And she also was that person. So many people remember her, because she lived such a profound life, inspired so many people with her musicals and engaging so many people. And so many people remember her. And her children cannot even imagine what the kind of person she was. But I know, because I was with her for all the years. So anyway, this was beautiful. It was a beautiful mirror for me just now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I truly believe we should continue this discussion into next week. I don't think we should stop yet, but I'm just saying, I think we should continue this discussion into next week. Because I think we all have stories we can share like that. And one of the things that came up for me while you were talking, Vima, is that my biological father died when I was 8. And I was the oldest of 4 children. And he'd been sick with cancer since my mother was 6 months pregnant with me. And I was so blessed to have parents that were, don't be fearful that daddy's going to die. Although I was terrified. And it messed with me for many, 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 many years. And, but I started having these dreams that were so real, and where my dad would come in and sit on the side of my bed, or I'd go sit on the side of his bed, and we'd have a conversation about how everything was okay. Even though in my waking hours, I wasn't okay. And I wasn't with him when he died. I was with my second dad many years later. I was with him. And that is one of the most profound experiences that you can have, is to be with someone when they take that final breath. And I'm rambling, so I'm over for the moment.
I had an experience which is so weird that it's never made sense to me until just now, this very moment. This happened about 30 years ago. We had next door neighbors, and the husband was a wonderful fellow, and his wife was well known as being different, So he died in a traffic accident suddenly, and that was the end of him. And he appeared to me in a dream, which was more real than all of us sitting here right now. And he declared, with his hands on his hips, saying the name of his wife is a wonderful person. And I was thinking, yep, that's a lie and a half, Like, get real already, right? I mean, she's well known for being who she is. And what are you talking about? And only now do I understand that he was saying she ain't as bad as she looks. That, we've all got unconditional love except for the people we hate, So now I get it. And that's the reason I think that I was determined to meditate as a group on the intransigence of these conflicts in the world, is that I could never, ever, ever have imagined that the old man was telling me, love my wife. She deserves more love because of her need.
Thank you for sharing that, Shavana. Joyce, did you want to share?
Hi,
Hi.
this is Anne.
Oh, Anne, I just called on Joyce.
Okay.
Okay, hang on one sec. Okay, Joyce?
Thanks. I was also very moved by Linda's reading of this chapter. I couldn't have done it. Thank you, Linda. And I also have had an experience of being present when my father died. Which was very profound. the first time I ever experienced the death of anybody. And a month later, I was present when my first grandson, my daughter, gave birth to my first grandson. And it was, I believe, who was sharing about that? That was that Linda? Or no, that was Bima, I believe. The experience of being present for a life moving on and for a life coming in was so identical in my experience of that grandson. I was present in the birthing room. We had done the Lamaze and all of that. That it profoundly shifted my understanding in a fundamental, I guess, gnosis, in a gnosis way, of life, my life, all of life, and death. And I don't have words for it, but it's very profound. And Bima, you expressed it very well. That's what I was going to share.
Thank you, Joyce. Let me give the microphone to Anne. Go ahead.
Hi everybody. Wow, this call has been really beautiful, and I agree with the reading. It really touched my heart today. And there's one point that came out of whoever was sharing, Sharona, or what, I don't know her name. Anyway, but it's true. It's like when something bothers us or someone bothers us or we're passing judgment on someone because of the way they are, we contract. And what it is what if, it's the way that she said that what the voice of her husband said is that she needs more love, not less, because of the way she is. And I thought that's really so true, because the person who we're judging or withdrawing from, what if there was this attitude in that moment of, instead of having the negative response, if we just realized that that's where we're being asked to give more love, not less. I don't know if that made sense, but it's a really nice
I think
thing I like to incorporate into my life, is those people that are really struggling more, instead of passing judgment on them, that's where we need to give more love. Anyway, but the experience that I'm having in my life right now is two. One is that my mother in 2 months is going to be 96 years old. And I'm watching her go through the transition of making peace with her life, which she has so much dignity. And my mother was a very controlling, the way that my mother is right now is not the way I would have remembered her as the mother that raised me, or the person that she was. Her soul is coming through, and the light is coming through. And what I'm seeing in her is what she's left with, or what she's embracing, is she's actually embracing the love of who she is. And she's making this peace that, as her, I don't know, it's been a remarkable experience to be with this woman who I never wanted to be with or anything, that I cherish the time that we have together, because they're just such moments of love between a mother and a child, of both that we're experiencing, that is just very beautiful. And the other experience I'm having in my life is that my best friend had early Alzheimer's, and he's in very, very bad shape. And so what I see, though, is in some ways what's remarkable to me, I'm like the only, most people have abandoned him and don't want anything to do with him. His whole family, his children, nobody wants anything to do with him, because I guess what we don't understand, we don't embrace, I don't know. Well, anyway. And so I'm it. And I'm basically, it's a lot too, because I'm his world, meaning I'm the only thing left in his memory who he knows exists. Everything else is just, he's in la la land except for me because of whatever anyway. And what I see that's so amazing is I see who he is, meaning he's still the certain person he always was. It's just his his mind's gone, his cognitive thinking isn't there, his body isn't functioning anymore because the shutdown of the brain and dementia, how it affects us. But who he is and who he's always been shines through. And what's really amazing about that is that he's just pure love. I mean, he's just this really incredibly loving soul. And I don't know what I'm saying except that in the reading today and what we're talking about is about love and about that what we are is love and what we take with us is the love. And that love is the most important thing that there possibly could ever be, that's worth getting up in the morning for. And to me, love is synonymous with God. That love is God and God is love. Anyway, thank you for letting me share.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Okay, we're a couple minutes.
I want to say one other thing.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
And this group, what's so special to me about this group is because we hold that that reference point of love.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to thank everybody in this group for being in my life and for being a part of my life.
You are
and for
welcome.
who. Yeah, anyway, thank you.
All right, I think we should kind of continue this line of discussion next week, unless somebody else is vehemently against that idea. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, and I'll leave you with something my mother used to say to me before she crossed over, because she knew I was terrified of her dying. And she said, you need to remember that death is no less miraculous of a moment than the moment of birth.
Mm.
And
Wow.
it keeps me going.
Say that again.
Can I share the last words of my mother?
Yes, let me repeat what I just said to Anne. Death is no less miraculous of a moment than the moment of birth.
That's beautiful. My mother was 99 when she passed away. And she said
Wow.
to me, 99, it was 4 years ago, she said, no, I'm on the way. She was lying, no, I am on the way. And I said, how does it feel? And she said, it was like considering, and she said, unusual. And then she didn't say anything more. Unusual. Unusual.
Well, they're going home, right?
Yeah, I mean, she was so 99 years and has been alive, but she wanted to leave. She really wanted, she has been waiting for it, because she said, I'm done. And now she said, oh, no, I'm on the way. Oh, and how you feel? In Swedish, ovanligt, with uncommon or unusual. And then she didn't say anything. She just, oh. And 100 people were.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And I hold you all very dear in my heart as well. And
Thank
until
you.
next week, thank you. And thanks
Thank you.
everybody for participating. Love you all.
Love you all. Bye-bye.
Love.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.